everyone, my name is Julie. This is Keep Calm with Books and Coffee, and today I have a very large unhaul to talk about. So this is probably the largest unhaul I've ever done. It's quite big, and I am going to say that I posted all of this on my Pango Books shop. You're probably going to see this about a week after all of that went live, so there's probably still things there because I have like 70 books posted in that shop, and that's linked down below as always. But yeah, let's start. So the first one I have here might be the most controversial. We'll see. It is the Kingdom of the Wicked series by Carrie Maniscalco. I had gotten this in the Beacon box because I loved her other series, the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, but this one just wasn't working for me. I think it just couldn't decide what it wanted to be, if it wanted to be a mystery or a romance or a fantasy, new adult, young adult. So I am unhauling all three books in this series: the Kingdom of the Wicked, Kingdom of the Cursed, and Kingdom of the Feared. So those are gone. Next up we have the Alchemy of Masks and Mirrors by Curtis Craddock. This is book 1 in the Risen Kingdom series and book 2. I read book 1 and I enjoyed it, but I have not made any attempt to go back and read the second book after reading. I probably read this at least 5 or 6 years ago, and I've had this book the entire time and I have not gone back to it. This is a high fantasy series that reminds me a lot actually of the Christelle de Beauce series that I like so much back here, but I just never went back to it, and I think it's been too long. I would have to reread the first book, and I do not have the drive to do that. Then we have some single books that I have read and decided to take off my shelves. This is The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. This was a YA book that I enjoyed when I read it, but I don't have the drive to reread it. I really don't think I'll ever go back to it, and I don't need it anymore. Someone else can try it. Then I have The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Shakshi, which I read for a book club, purchased when it first came out, and I did not enjoy this book, so it's gonna go. Then we have The Animals of Lockwood Manor by Jane Healy. This was a sapphic, historical, like mystery haunted house. Like, it reminds me of The Haunting of Hill House from what I know about that book, or that story show, whatever that is, and this kind of let me down. I didn't love the ending and I was kind of frustrated with the characters, so this is gonna go. This is Read Bottom Up by Neil Shaw and Sky Chatham, and this is something that I read a few years ago. I enjoyed. I think I gave it 5 stars, but it's not something I'm gonna reread, so I'm gonna take that off my shelves. Next up is By the Book by Jasmine Guillory, which is something I didn't love. I think it ended up being like a 3-star read recently, and I know I'm not going to reread this because I was disappointed by it, so that's going to go, along with The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. I read, and somewhat, like, again, a middling book. It was a book and I read it, but I don't need to keep it. Then we have Misrule by Heather Walter. This was a super disappointing duology sequel that I have no interest in visiting again, and will probably end up on like my worst books of the year list, but I don't even want to keep it that long. I don't even want to keep it till the end of the year. Then we also have Walk on Earth, a Stranger by Ray Carson, which I read a few years ago, and I liked this first book, but I never had the drive to go get the rest of the books, and even if I do want to reread it and continue the series, I will probably do it on audiobook, so I will get them from my library or somewhere. So this is going to get off my shelves. Next up is a small stack of books that I recently read and DNF'd. The first is Hounded by Kevin Hearn. This was a series that I got recommended years ago because it's a urban fantasy, like paranormal series based on Iron Druid mythology, and I did not like the writing style of this. It was kind of gross about women and very frustrating, and I just didn't like it. It felt too bro-y for me, so I gave up on that one. Not the Witchy Wed by April Asher was one that I had heard mixed things about, and I decided to DNF after a chapter, so this just wasn't one that I was jiving with the writing style of, and I was frustrated by the characters. Then I gave up on Tessa Bailey's Too Hot to Handle. I read a little bit of this to begin with, but I couldn't get into it. Something about this cover is putting me off too, and I don't know what it is, but I started to read this, and every time I started to like pick it up, I didn't want to pick it up. So I was doing like a project where which is probably the video that was before this one on the channel. I was doing this video project where I was trying books and deciding if I wanted to keep them or not. And I literally had this one on the top of the shelf, or the top of the stack of books. I'd pick the one under it, and then I'd keep going. I'd avoid this one. So I was like, there is a problem here. So I did eventually like try the first chapter, and I just didn't like it. And I, for some reason, had bad vibes about it. I really don't think that's this book's fault. I think it's me, and I just couldn't get excited about this one. Then we have A Marvelous Light by Freya Marski, or Marsk, I'm not sure. Then we have A Marvelous Light by Freya Marsk. And for me, this one is, occasionally I get a book and I start it and I just know from the get-go it's going to be like a 3-star read, and it just kind of puts me off reading it. Like, I thought I was reading this and I read a couple of chapters and I just thought, I don't care that much. I don't care to read it that much. So I just sort of got uninterested. Like my interest just went down the drain. So that's kind of what happened with this book, unfortunately. Even though I think it has a lot of things in it I would probably enjoy, I think it's probably going to end up being a middle of the road book. So for me, this is going to go. There's still more, don't worry. A few more from that project that I was trying some reads, mostly YA, on my shelf, and I decided to unhaul Angel Mage by Garth Nix. This was one that I had read. I had purchased auto buy because I love Garth Nix's Old Kingdom series, but after reading the description again and starting the book, I realized this really isn't something that I'm interested in. So I did. That was my fault. That was my bad. I think it's just not for me. Then we have These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan, which was a book that I purchased based on a TikTok video that talked about this being I think it's new adult fae related romance, like fantasy romance book. And I read the first chapter and I didn't like it, so it's gone. And then we have The Dark Days Club by Allison Goodman, and I had picked this up years ago because I was intrigued by the premise, even though I don't have a good track record by Allison Goodman because I didn't like Eon and Iona, and I think there were issues with those books, but I thought I would try this. And then when I started the first chapter, I realized that this felt like every other Victorian headstrong female character I had ever read. Like, it felt like a cookie cutter, and I just wasn't interested. So this is DNF. Then I think the rest are ones that I just didn't even really read. I had previously pulled off my shelves as things that I wanted to unhaul for one reason or another. So the first one of those is The Ghosts of the Shadow Market by Cassandra Clare and a bunch of other people. This is mainly about Jem and his like visits to the shadow market, and I've kind of given up on Cassandra Clare. I have decided that I am no longer interested in her series, and this is one that I hadn't even started, even though I'm interested in Jem and what's going on with him. I just decided, you know what, I'm probably not going to read it. Then we have Reincarnation Blues by Michael Poor, and this is one that I was interested in, but I heard some reviews of it recently that I was off-put by, and some of the trigger warnings it has to do with it. So I just decided that this wasn't one I was going to be interested in reading. Then we have The Lovely War by Julie Berry. I have had so many books like this one on my shelves over the years, where it is a sort of, there is a bet between the gods about a couple, and you know, their death is always going to win and all this stuff, and I have never read them. I always have them for a long time and I never actually read them. So I think I'm going to take this as the lesson that I shouldn't pick them up unless I'm going to read them immediately, or maybe try them from the library. Then we have The Guns Above by Robin Bennis, and this is another one that I actually tried to read and DNF'd, and so is Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. I think I got these recs from similar places, which are YouTubers that I watched years ago. I picked up these books years ago, and now my reading tastes have kind of changed from what these recommendations would have been. Like, if I had read these immediately, I might have enjoyed them when I got them, but this far down the line, I am no longer interested. Then the very last two things I have here are two books in the Poldark series by Winston Graham, which I had read, I think, the first two books in this series a while ago, and I found these at a book sale, but I have abandoned that series, and then I found these books in like a random spot in my house, so I realized I'm not interested in keeping these either, because I haven't read the series in so long. Anyway, that's the unhaul. That was a lot of books to talk about, and I have a small maybe pile over here that you might see eventually, but yeah, there's a small maybe unhaul pile. They're gonna sit there a little bit and see if I change my mind about them. But that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see me again, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. If you have any thoughts or feelings about any of the books that I am unhauling and you want to respectfully have a discussion, please let me know down below. If you don't have anything, or if you're not feeling chatty, just go ahead and leave me a shopping bag emoji, because these are all gonna go in a shopping bag until either they go on Pango or I decide to donate them to one of my local shops. But yeah, that is everything for me today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!